overall notion here is HR potentially is becoming the tip of the spear from a corporate workplace perspective. And I think that's something relatively new. So let's unpack that conversation. Daniel, let's go to you. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to say that, in the past, these were distinctly separate groups, and we're starting to introduce them to each other more and more, or they are already starting to talk to each other more and more because they're seeing these as two components of the same question. And it's, I think we will get into this a little later in the conversation, but it's not. Previously, HR thought beyond the workplace in terms of this is human interaction. This is, the people side of things, whereas the building was structural and they didn't overlap that much. But now, as you said earlier, we're at a point where we have to define what the workplace accomplishes and actually potentially try to draw people back to it based on the experiences that we're creating or based on the outcomes that we can drive in the workplace. So it has to do something differently. And the two actually have to work together and identify what are the key components that define a successful workplace for their people and for their organization, and kind of, work together to drive those initiatives forward. I think it's really difficult to think about the work experience without thinking about something like sustainability or thinking about performance of the building itself. I think it's also really difficult to think about the actual structure of the building and as we talked about before, the type of space need and maybe sustainability initiatives without thinking about the impact of the workforce. And I think that's always been true to some extent, but it's really been thrust forward in this post-COVID world.
100%. 100%. I'm going to go to you, Mike, and then I'm going to bring in a conversation point from David Gray. But, Mike, we work together a lot. I would imagine that the notion that facility management is being overwhelmed with data, and on the other side of the fence, HR maybe not having access to the data that they need is a really hot topic point. Anything to unpack here?
Oh, yeah. I think if anything, it's going to just create that kind of feeling of at odds with each other. Not that that's never happened before, at least in my experience that I've seen, but I would say that it's really going to come back down to what is it that you want to measure, and then how do you think you're going to best measure it? And I think facilities have got to understand that sometimes that doesn't mean we're going to put new technology in the building or we're going to add even more data streams that they're going to be responsible for. It possibly could be in another bucket somewhere that allows that to happen. But the key would be is they both need to see that there is, they're at least they're common around trying to solve the same problem, but from a different perspective.